Hi, it's Miss Silbert here, and today I'm going to show you how to draw an astronaut. So I'm going to take inspiration from this photograph of Buzz Aldrin in 1969 while he was on the moon, and Neil Armstrong took a photo of him. And just to get started, I'm just going to block out on my paper a little bit, kind of where I'm going to put the figure. The proportions of drawing an astronaut aren't exactly like drawing the figures of a human. And in the photograph I'm using as a reference, the perspective is kind of weird, and it feels like the head and the torso are way bigger than Buzz Aldrin's legs. So I'm just gonna kind of use this as a general guideline, but at the same time I might kind of play around and change it a bit. So I'm just gonna really super loosely draw in some chunky shapes just to kind of get a feeling for where everything is gonna go. And then I'm gonna go back and really start to refine my drawing. Sometimes when we're starting to draw, it's really good to just kind of be like, okay, where's everything gonna go? Sort of like make yourself a little map and then go back and figure out all your details, right? So here's kind of like a bubble of a person here, right? And so now that I have this, I'm gonna go ahead, I don't need the little square guidelines anymore, so I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of them, right? They did their little job. And spacesuits definitely are a really complicated subject to try to draw, because they're basically like a one-person spacecraft, right? That's how NASA designs them, so that an individual can go out into space and do everything that they need to do and still breathe and drink water and have mobility. They actually call the astronaut spacesuits, they call them extravehicular mobility units. So it's called an EMU, but we just like to call spacesuits, right? So what I'm doing right now is just working on making the helmet and the visor. They call it like the extravehicular visor assembly. NASA has all these fancy names for everything. So this is just very simply a circle and then a curve line, curve line, curve line, and curve line, right? So we've got a helmet on our Buzz right now, and behind Buzz, what he carries on his backpack is a primary life support system. And it is a super important backpack that helps astronauts keep to a safe body temperature and helps with their oxygen intake and really important things to let there be to support life out in outer space where there's no air. So basically I just made a cube here, and we could add some more details to that support system in a little bit. And the spacesuit has layers and layers of fabric and material, and it kind of, an astronaut puts it on in sort of like three big parts. There's the lower torso assembly, the hard upper torso, and then there's like the helmet and the visor part. And I can go back into the sleeve and add some of the wrinkles and things, but just to get a general shape. It's good when you first start drawing something is to keep moving on. You don't get too fixated on one little tiny element. You kind of go about your business getting all the general shapes in, and then the big pieces, and then go smaller and smaller. So a lot of times when you're drawing, a good method to use while you draw is going from big to small. And I'm going to go back into this hand later. I'm almost going to leave the glove looking more like a mitten for the moment. And I'm just kind of working my way around the body. I'm not going to worry too much about all the valves just yet. Just kind of cleaning up the line, making it a little bit darker. I finally found out the difference between the orange spacesuits and the white spacesuits, because you always see the astronauts when they're coming and going, waving, getting on and off the shuttle, they're in the orange spacesuits. And it turns out those ones are called Advanced Crew Escape Suits. And they just wear those when they're inside the spaceship, and that they don't wear those to go outside. All right, so now I've got a darker line, and I've refined it a little bit. So all my kind of light sketches, the sketch lines, I can kind of erase those a bit and clean up the drawing a little bit. I might ink this in at the end, or I might leave it at a pencil drawing, but just to make it visually clear to myself. And I noticed this arm, the spacesuit, I needed to make it a little bit bigger, because they really are kind of chunky arms on these spacesuits. And that his gloved hand here. It's hard to see in this old photograph what's actually happening here, but I think we use a little bit of our imagination. And in the photograph that I'm looking at of Buzz, he's on the moon in the Sea of Tranquility, and in the photograph the moon is at an angle, and I think I'm going to go ahead and keep that. That kind of looks neat. So I'm just going to imagine it going across there and then continue the line right there. And I got to get this bottom shoe in. It's really kind of difficult to make it out, so we'll just leave it kind of like a little boot. And there's kind of like a little bit of a line there. There's a line there. And this hand glove over here. See a little bit of the separation. And I guess they have little heaters inside the tips of the fingers of the gloves to help keep the astronauts' fingers warm enough, because it does get so cold while they're working out in space. And the fingers are really kind of an extremity that is, you know, so far away from the heart that they gotta give it some extra warmth. All right, so we've got our gloves, our boots, and now we can start to add some of the other details that are on it. On one knee pad, there's this little shape that looks kind of like this, and it has some little bolts on it. And this is some type of pressure relief valve. And on all the different spacesuits, you know, that have happened throughout the years, there's like different versions. But a lot of them seem to have like a long rectangular panel on the left leg. And I think it's some sort of a utility pocket that they have. And there's this little flap right here, dots. And they have a series, usually. Like I said, they're different iterations of this throughout the years. But they all have these sort of like valves on the spacesuit. And some of them are connected to the primary life support system in the back, and they kind of have these what they call umbilical cords that wrap around. And they kind of go back, and then they come up this way, and they attach over here. And then oftentimes there's some sort of little panel. I don't know, not necessarily seeing it on the photograph, but based on other pictures I've seen of astronaut suits, there's another little cable that goes here. So I'm going to add that. And there's the American flag is on the suit over here. I'm going to draw it exactly, but get the idea. And on the front of this, you can really have some fun and use your imagination with this and kind of be your own spacesuit designer. There's a lot of little boxes and panels and things that kind of stick out on that front piece right there. And let's see if there's any other key things. You can have a lot of fun with the shading on this. The reflection in the astronaut's visor can be really fun to kind of play around with. I'm just going to make like a few general shapes here and just do a little bit of shading. But you could put planet Earth or the whole galaxy and really have some fun with it. I'm just going to go like that for now. Thinking about outer space is definitely can lend itself a lot to the imagination. Thinking about whole worlds you could discover out there in the universe. So at this point, now it's just kind of individual details that you could add onto it. Some shading. And just have some fun using your own imagination. So I hope this was fun, and be well and creative.